Hi, my name is Konstantin, Master of Wine, and today we're diving deep into another old yet new wine style. They started off as a mistake and now they're the coolest thing ever. We're talking about pet nuts. Have you ever thought about how wine styles have developed over the years? Every wine must have been made for the first time at some point, and with pet nuts it likely happened when glass bottles were first used at scale for wine. Back in the days, winemakers were less knowledgeable and did not have a detailed analysis of their wines at hand, so oftentimes they thought the fermentation was over even though there was some sugar left in the wine. Wine starting to re-ferment after it left the winery was not a huge problem when wine was transported in barrels, amphoras or skins, where the CO2 could find its way out of the vessel. However, when producers started to put wines into essentially hermetically sealed bottles, things started to get a little bit crazy. In the best cases, these wines developed bubbles or foam when they were poured, and in the worst cases, the bottles exploded. But it is often the case in the world of wine that mistakes become traditions, as people started to like these explosive wines, so winemakers started to make pet nuts on purpose. Today, this tradition goes back a long time, as the first recorded production of pet nut was in Blanquette de Limoux in southern France in 1531. By the way, the term pet nut is a fairly recent invention. It is an abbreviation of the term pétillant naturel, which basically means natural, sparkling or naturally bubbly wine. Pet nut is not a legal term and there are few legal restrictions associated with it, which makes it very popular in the natural wine scene, where people tend to, dislike rules and regulations. But most producers make the wine in the following way. A fermenting wine is filled into bottles, allowing the wine to finish fermentation in bottle under a crown cap. So there's only one fermentation, and the yeast cells that develop during fermentation are usually left in the wine. The pressure is usually lower than for champagne, cava, crémant or sect, so there are fewer bubbles. This method is called méthode ancestrale or ancestral method, as it is the oldest way of producing sparkling wine. Other methods, like the traditional method used in champagne, were developed later. Today there's at least one AOC focused on pet nut, Montlouis Pétillant Originel, which was founded in 2007. The wines have to be made from Chenin Blanc following the méthode ancestrale, but they have to stay 9 months on the lees and then they have to be disgorged, so the yeast actually needs to be removed from the wine before the wine is released to the market. But now let's dive into the wines. I think I don't need my corkscrew here. I just need this, but hold on, this is not going to work. I need another corkscrew. Luckily, I always have a backup here, and this will do the job, I think, today. Let's see. So let's start off with the first wine, the 2001 Testalonga El Bandito I Am the Ninja, which clearly is a natural wine. You just need to look at the label and you know. So this winery is run by Carla and Craig Hawkins, who worked with a bunch of really important people in the wine world before and then settled in Swartland to make their own wines. This is bottle fermented, obviously, apparently disgorged as far as I read the information right, and it has a little bit of residual sugar. So let's try it. So the wine is made from 100% Chenin Blanc, which is locally known as Stain. And well, this goes to show that pet nut is a thing all around the world, even in South Africa, which is pretty much on the other side of the globe for me. They make pet nuts. Do they make good pet nuts? We'll find out. Whoa, 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 whoa. Look at that. There's quite a bit of CO2 in there. So there's quite a bit of foam there. Oftentimes I find that pet nuts have very stable foam. I think it probably has something to do with the remaining yeast cells kind of forming stronger foam, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So I don't know about the disgorgement part because the wine doesn't look 100% clear to me, but well, it might have been disgorged, but it's slightly turbid. So the wine smells of ripe apple, a little bit of peach, quite ripe white stone fruit, so peach, apricot, this kind of direction. On the palate, it's actually quite rich because there is some residual sugar there. In my opinion, good freshness. It's very light. I mean, this is 10.5% of alcohol, which is something I really enjoy about pet nuts. They tend to be fairly light in alcohol, and therefore you can drink more of it. So this is a good wine, but it's not super exciting in my opinion. I would say This is fairly well made. I'm going to rate it 84 points. And let's move on to the next wine. And the next one is the Casa Belfi Prosecco Naturalmente Frizzante, which means naturally fizzy. And this style of wine is also known as Col Fondo in the region of Prosecco. It's kind of the funky, crazy cousin to the more mainstream style of Prosecco. So the grapes that are used here are Glera grapes, so the grape variety that is used for common Prosecco as well. But this wine, well, you can basically see it. It's not clear. There's quite a lot of yeast floating in it, and I'm looking forward to tasting it. So let's go. Hope this one doesn't explode as much as the other one, but we'll find out. Yeah, definitely less fizz here. This is kind of a nice touch. You can keep the crown cap attached to the bottle, just like that. In Italy, like in most countries in Europe, there's a difference between frizzante and spumante, fizzy wine and sparkling wine. Sparkling wines in Germany actually are taxed with €1, 2 cents per bottle, while fizzy wines aren't. So this is actually quite important when it comes to pricing. Fizzy wines tend to be a lot cheaper, in Germany at least, than in any other market. In most other markets, sparkling wines are also more expensive just because they are more difficult to make in general, and they are more desired in the market, I would say. So the wine is definitely not 100% clear. There are some yeast cells floating in there. Some producers actually recommend shaking the bottle or moving it a little bit so that the yeast cells really go everywhere and are evenly distributed in the bottle. But yeah, sometimes it's also interesting to taste the wines with less yeast and then taste it with more yeast just to find out the difference. I can actually smell quite a bit of reduction, slightly funky, stinky notes coming out of the glass without putting my nose into the glass, but now let's smell a bit closer. This is kind of interesting. This is the first time I've ever smelled on a pet nut and thought of like very high-end Chardonnay from Burgundy. This has a little bit of crazy, funky reduction that you get in Coche du Riz, for example. So really well made, in my opinion, the difference between, the slightly reductive notes and the fruit flavor. On the palate, there's lots of freshness and vibrancy. This one is actually, definitely not a big wine, but it's very precise and really well made. So there are multiple layers here. This is definitely quite interesting. I'm going to rate this 90 points. I think it's pretty good. By the way, while collecting the wines, I found this bottle in my office, and this is actually a present from Leon. This is a pet nut he made himself. I haven't tried it yet, and I'm going to try it on this show, but later on. Let's first get all of the other pet nuts out of the way. So the next one is the 2021 Axel Prufer Le Ton de Cerises La Peur du Rouge. And this was made by a German, Axel Prufer, who moved to France in 2003, set up his own winery in Languedoc, and is now making really good wines apparently. And he also made this wine, which is a blend of Clairette and Chardonnay. And look at that label. This kind of screams at you, I'm a natural wine, which is cool. And it only has 9.5% of alcohol, so this is really low. I'm not sure whether this means that the wine has some residual sugar, but let's find out. Whoa. Okay, I saved some, and I think I need to clean this tablecloth. What the is this? Okay, I had to clean up this mess, and it's still quite messy here now, but this is like, now we're talking. This is proper pet nut with all the bits and pieces that you want or don't want to have in your wine. It's enticing, interesting, exciting. Let's see. So first of all, this looks more like an orange wine. This was made using 10 days of maceration carbonique for the white grape varieties that were used in this wine. So you get some color extraction here. You clearly have quite a bit of CO2 there. It doesn't stop bubbling. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad sign, but now let's taste. It's interesting. It smells of strawberries, rhubarb, A little bit vinegary as well. So I'm not, yeah, it's not 100% clean, I think, but not in a bad way. It's kind of nice and complex. On the palate, it's quite juicy and rich. I'm guessing there's some sugar there. Maybe the wine has continued fermenting in bottle as well, and that's why there's such a mess on my table now. But it is really good. It's juicy, fresh, vibrant. It's definitely funky. I mean, if you look into the bottle, there are like proper pieces swimming there. So it's not like a little bit of yeast cells. It's like chunks of something that looks like it's alive. So interesting stuff. I'm going to rate this wine 89 points. I think it's really like exciting, really good stuff. So the next one is the 2021 Ancestral Blanc from Raumland in Germany. And this is interesting because this is actually classified as German Sekt. It's closed under a cork and not a crown cap. So I'm guessing this will be kind of in between a normal Petnat and a Sekt. I'm guessing. I haven't tasted this wine before. Raumland is really well known in Germany for producing really good sparkling wines. So let's hope this one doesn't explode as much as the other one. We'll find out. Oh, tame. Very tame. So the wine is a cuvée of 1/3, well, that was the mic, 1/3 Muscatella and 2/3 of Riesling. So aromatic grape varieties. It starts the fermentation in inox in stainless steel, gets then transferred into bottle at 24 grams of residual sugar. And in the end, the final wine has roughly 7 to 8 grams of residual sugar. So the rest just kind of goes into the yeast cells and they turn that into CO2. You know the deal. So this wine would classify as a Brut with this level of residual sugar. But now let's taste it. Well, this wine actually feels a little bit less bubbly, which is interesting because this is the sparkling wine, whereas most of the previous wines are clearly classified as fizzy, bubbly wines, so with less CO2 in them. And I don't quite understand why you don't get more of this CO2 on the palate. That said, it's actually really good. It is quite fruity, fresh and vibrant, so you have definitely less of the yeastiness that you had in some of the previous wines. The Muscatella really comes through, in my opinion. The Riesling is there as well. On the palate, it's super fresh. The acidity is very intense, but it doesn't feel sharp, so it's well balanced, quite enjoyable, refreshing, light, sparkling wine. So I'm going to rate this 88 points. I think it's really good. It's interesting. It's not as wild as some of the other wines, so it's not super exciting, but it is a good Petnat Méthode Ancestrale sparkling wine. It's probably the better term. So the next one is the 2021 Claus Preisinger St. Laurent Ancestral from Austria. So I think I've tasted a few wines from Claus Preisinger by now on this channel, but he makes really good wines and I'm guessing this will be quite interesting as well, especially because this is actually made using a red grape variety, St. Laurent. So the grapes for this wine were farmed biodynamically and there were no sulfites added to this wine. So this could clearly be classified as a natural wine. And the motto of the wine is apparently bubbles against troubles, which is, well, I approve of that. And again, you can kind of keep the cork attached in case you want to reseal the bottle. So again, there's quite a lot of foam there. The wine is not quite clear. The bubbles look fairly big, and I don't think there's as many bubbles in there as in some of the other Petnats in this case. And well, let's dive in. So I actually thought this might be a red wine, but it clearly is a white wine. So they used St. Laurent grapes and squeezed them very softly without leaving them in contact with the skins in contact with the juice, and therefore had like a light colored wine, which is not special in sparkling wine making. Champagne does that all the time with Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier. This wine has quite a bit of foam. The bubbles are fairly big and there's not too many of them, so I'm not guessing that this will be like mouth-filling, sparkling or really foamy, but But yeah, let's taste it. Well, this is good. It's really well made. It smells of lemon juice. There's a little bit of this bruised apple character that I often get in natural wines. So it's not 100% pristine and clean, but it doesn't have to be that. And on the palate, it's quite fresh, lean. But there's not too much going on here, to be honest. I mean, it's really good. It's a light, fresh, fizzy wine. I'm going to rate this 86 points. I think it's very good, but not top notch, not one of the best wines in the tasting. So yeah, good stuff. But now let's move on to the wine we've all been waiting for. Leon has kind of tortured me quite a few times here in blind tastings where he selected the wines. And now I might be torturing him tasting this wine in public. I hope not. I'm pretty sure this is a pretty cool product. He actually gave me a bottle when he left his internship. He's still working for me, but well, at the end of his internship, he kind of said he's going to give me a bottle of wine that he made himself. I think it's called Sun Gaze 3. It looks pretty cool. It looks like a natural wine. And I'm sure Leon kind of made this into a natural wine. So let's taste it and see how it compares. Maybe this is the best wine in the tasting. We don't know. Could be. All right. There's suspiciously little CO2. Well, let's see. Oh, there's some bubbles. So yeah, there are some bubbles, but not a lot. But to be fair, the Raumland also didn't show all that much bubbliness. So that's not necessarily a quality factor, in my opinion. Let's smell and taste it. That's much more important. I think this is based on Riesling. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he made it while doing an internship at a famous winery in the Mosel region. And it smells a little bit of peaches, ripe apple. So this could be suggestive of Riesling as a grape variety. There's actually there's not a lot of CO2 here. It's not really like a pet nut with lots of bubbles. It's fairly flat on the palate. It's quite intense. There's quite a lot going on. There's also a little bit of structure, a little bit of bitterness, quite a bit of fresh acidity. So it's a really interesting wine. So yeah, well done, Leon. I think if this wine was in a lineup and I wouldn't know that it is like an amateur who made the wine, I wouldn't have guessed it. I think it's really, really interesting. It's obviously not quite as bubbly as most of the other pet nuts. So you would probably expect a little bit more bubbliness. But I think the general fruit character of the wine, the intensity on the palate, that's all there. So well done. I'm not going to rate this, but this is good. This is good. Knowing that no one of you can ever taste it, because I think all of the bottles are already gone. But it's a good wine. Okay, this was an interesting, illuminating tasting. I think there is just so much diversity when it comes to pet nuts. It's kind of difficult to grasp in one tasting. But my two favorites were these two wines, the Casa Belfi Prosecco col Fondo, which was really beautifully made, quite sublime. And I did really like the Le Temps de Cerises, which is kind of super funky and crazy, but I think this is really a wine for us wine geeks to, well, stick our nose into and talk a lot about. And that's really important with wine as well. You don't want boring wines that don't have anything to say and that don't make you want to say something. This is definitely one of those wines that gets you really, well, amped up and gets you to talk. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, what do you think about pet nuts? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Have you ever tasted them? Let me know down below. I hope I see you guys again very soon. Until then, stay thirsty. And Leon, thanks for your private homemade wine. Cheers.